Today we are continuing lesson 6.1, determining and sketching coterminal angles and reference angles. Just in key terms, coterminal angles are angles in standard position with the same terminal arm. Standard position, an angle is in standard position with its vertex located at origin, and an initial arm lies on the x-axis. The terminal arm refers to the arm that defines the angle, and the reference angle is the acute angle less than 90 degrees, between the terminal side or the arm of an angle and the x-axis. It's always less than the 90 degrees. Now, here's a diagram. Here we have standard position angle. Here we have the initial side, the terminal side, and the angle in between referred to the standard position. Okay. Now, in your booklet, you have a nice diagram here to illustrate standard position. Here we have your coordinate. Initial arm is your x-axis, the angle starting from the x-axis going up, and the other arrow points to the terminal arm. The angle in between here is positive. So if you're going counterclockwise, oops, to be positive here, positive angle. This is negative angle going down. So if you're going up is positive, starting from the x-axis or initial arm, going counterclockwise is positive. Going clockwise now, it will be negative. So for example, here we have ketchup falling in standard position. We have an angle of 23 degrees, starting from the initial arm, which is the x-axis, to the terminal arm. It's 23 degrees, so positive. Now here is negative 170 degrees. You start from the x-axis going clockwise, and this is a negative 170 degrees. So it's negative when you're going clockwise, positive when you're going counterclockwise. Here is 510 degrees. You start from your positive, your x-axis, once, twice. So it gives me 510 degrees. So that's angle in standard position. Now, when we look at angle now, coterminal angle, as I mentioned before, now, these are angles in standard position with the same terminal arm are coterminal angles. And there are infinite number of them. Yesterday, we looked at a few, and angles in standard position with the same terminal arm. Here is an example. We have one that goes around. Here is your terminal arm here. The standard position is 40 degrees, but the coterminal would be 400, 760. So you add 360 degrees to your standard angle. And that's where a coterminal is positive is theta, which is your angle, plus 360 times the number of times, which is the whole number. Like first would be 1, 2 would be 2 times 360 plus your angle. So for example, this one here, we have 40 degrees plus 360 that give us 400, the first one. The second coterminal would be 40 plus 360 times 2, give me 760. But the reverse would be true for negative. So if you're going clockwise now, right, so it will be negative, so it'll be theta plus 360, or minus, sorry, theta minus 360. which is your coterminal of 40. So it'll be 40 minus 360 is negative 320 is the first one. So 40 minus 360 times 2, negative 680. And 40 minus 360 times 3, 1040. If you were to continue this, that would be your positive angles, the coterminal angles. The next thing we look at is the reference angle. Now, a reference angle is the angle between the terminal arm or side of an angle and the x-axis. And it's always less than 90 degrees. Notice. Now, here are some examples. Here we have our standard angle, 40 degrees. Now, the reference angle is always from the x-axis going towards, you see, counterclockwise. Now, it cannot be greater than 90 degrees, so it will always be less than 90 degrees. So this is my terminal arm. So the angle from the x-axis to the terminal arm is 40 degrees. So the reference angle will be 40 degrees. So anytime your angle in standard position is less than 90 degrees, it will be the same as your reference angle. It will be different here now. Here we have a standard angle in standard position is 100, so this would be angle in standard position. And it's 135 degrees. The reference angle will be 45 degrees. Because from the arm here to 135 is 45 degrees. So 135 plus 45 is 180. So you measure from the x-axis going counterclockwise, which is your standard angle, 135. Then to find your reference angle, it would be 180 minus 135. So this is 180 degrees minus 135, which is equal to 45 degrees. Okay. If we were to look at this one here, this would be 40 minus 0, because this is 0 here. So it would be 40 minus 0, give me 40 degrees. Let's look at this next one here. Here we have 200 degrees as our standard angle in standard position. Now, a reference angle is between your x-axis, which is this guy here, and your terminal arm. So since this is 200, here is 180, so the difference between the two is 20. So that's why the reference arm is 20 degrees. Okay. And the last one here we have 325. The difference now between, this is 360 degrees, and 325 is 35. So the reference angle, this would be 360 degrees minus 325, gives me 35 degrees. So these are all the reference angles. So we have quadrant 4, we have one, quadrant 2, we have quadrant 1, and quadrant 3, the reference angle. Okay, now we've done that, let's look on to your assignment from the previous class. check your understanding. This question is from your textbook. So determine the measure of all angles in standard position between negative 800 degrees and positive 800 degrees that are coterminal with an angle of 85 degrees in standard position. Sketch the angles. So let's look at this one here. We look at between 0 and 800, right? The measures with coterminal are such. Let's do a sketch here. The positive 85 degrees. So here we have approximately 85 degrees. Positive 85 degrees. I'm going counterclockwise. So I'm going positive x. So we are using, recall, we know given any angle, the coterminal is defined. So define coterminal. Is defined. So given any angle theta, in terms of theta, it's defined as theta plus 360k. We know k is any integer. This is for positive angle. And for negative angle, 360k. So negative. So the first one is, so we have 85 degrees, right? So what coterminal? So coterminal so angles, coterminal angles with 85 degrees. So with the first one, so we 85 plus 360. So 85 degrees plus 360 times 1. And we're going to calculate it here. What we get here? 85 plus 360 times 1 is 445. So 445 degrees is our first coterminal arm. So if I were to continue this here, I'm going to make this a bit longer. So it's 445 degrees. So here's 85. Now we want to continue that. See if we are going to be between, can it be greater than 800? So let's see what happened here. 85 plus 360 times 2 now. 360 times 2, 720 plus 85, 805. So that's greater than. So we have to stop here. So this will not work because it's greater than 800. So the coterminal angles with 85, actually there's only one, that are between negative 800 and 800 is positive 445. So this is between in this case that are 0 degrees and 800. Now let's look at angle that are between, so between negative 800 and 0 degrees. So let's look at another diagram here. So this is our standard arm, 85. Now, let's look what happened now. We start from our x-axis here, go once. Down we're going to go clockwise. So we're starting from here, x is 0. So we go clockwise. So it'd be 360 minus 85. But we know from our definition, it is theta minus 360k. So between 800, negative 800 and 0, the coterminal angles the coterminal with actually with, in this case, it will be 85. It will be 85 minus 360 times 1, which works out to be 85 minus 360, 275, negative. So now from here to here, it's negative 275. Now if you continue now, add 365 to it. So 360, sorry. So now we add 360 to that. So the 85 minus 360 times 2. So 85 minus 360 times 2 equals 635. So it's less than negative 800. So if you were to continue this here, this would be 635 degrees. So we'll have to stop there, because if you were to go any further, it would be greater than negative, or it would be beyond negative 800. So we can conclude a part of this. So our general equation for this here, it would be 85 plus, right, 360 degrees times k, where k is an element of integer. So we complete a couple more examples looking at angles in standard position. This is from your exercises. Here you're asked to sketch each angle in standard position, then identify the reference angle. Remember the standard position, if it's positive, you're starting from your x going counterclockwise. And if it's negative, you're starting from the x going clockwise. So let's sketch the first one, 460 degrees. So we start around on your x-axis, go around once. This is 360. But we have to go further, 100 degrees, right? Because this is 360. I'll just indicate it here for a minute. We'll have to erase this, 360 degrees. So now we need to go to 460. So plus 100 degrees, right? Now this is 90 here. So slightly beyond 90. So we continue, and it will end just about there. So this will be continuing coterminal angle of 400. So standard position, sorry. Standard position is 460 degrees. Now the next one is a negative 350 degrees. And negative, you're starting from your x-axis again. In this case, it was Going counterclockwise, this is clockwise now. So this is negative 180, negative 270. So 360 degrees would be all the way around, but it's 10 degrees less. So terminal arm would be here. So negative 350 degrees. Okay. Just remember, when you're doing standard position, you start from your x-axis, your standard position. Now 695 degrees. So if you were to work this out algebraically, this would be what? The coterminal angle. So coterminal angle. So if you have a coterminal angle, since this is positive, here we're going, this is okay, counterclockwise. We have this 460, and this 360 degrees, equal 100. So we can see the reference angle now the reference angle will be this angle here. So this is 100 degrees here. This would be 100 degrees angle. From your x-axis to the terminal arm would be 180 degrees minus 100. Because this is from here to here is 100. So your reference angle would be what, 80 degrees. So this is your 80 degrees. Sorry about that, reference angle. The reference angle for this one here, so the coterminal, so let's look at the coterminal angle is, now we have 360 minus 10. Sorry, 360 minus 350 gives you 10. So which is 360 degrees minus 350 degrees equals 10. So this is your reference angle. Equal 10 degrees. The coterminal angle is the same as reference angle. Remember, reference angle is always from your x-axis to the terminal arm, and less than 90, has to be less than 90 degrees. Okay, let's look on the last two here. The last two questions we're looking at, sketch the angle in standard position first, and then identify the reference angle. So we need to find the reference angle. 695 degrees, right? So we'll look at that one, 695. So one way of looking at this, how many circles do we have here? So you can take your calculator, one way of doing it. So might be a laborious way. So 695 divided by 360 tells you number of circles you have. It'd be less than one circle. So you know you're gonna go around once. So first of all, we start from the x-axis here, go around once, 360 degrees. Okay, so now we have 695 minus 360, 335 degrees more. So we need to go around, that's 90, 180, 270, now 325 be around there. So if you look at this, it would be 335 from here to here, altogether 605 degrees. So from here, so the reference angle would be 25 degrees. Okay. So let's look at the coterminal angle is if we go all around here, is 2 times. Okay, it's 2 times 360. What would that give us? 360 times 2 be 720. So coterminal is negative 728 degrees plus 695 degrees equal to negative 25. But the reference angle is 25 degrees. Now, negative 500 degrees. Now, because we're going clockwise is negative. So we start here, we have 300 and negative 360. Now, we need to go up to 500. So 140 was 190 and 50. This will give me a measurement of negative 500. Okay. Now, from the x-axis to 500 is 140 degrees. So coterminal angle, searching a coterminal because these are all, there are many. A coterminal angle is 360 degrees minus 500, which gives me negative 140 degrees. That's why it's 140 degrees. So this is 80 degrees. Now this will make it from 180 to 140, which is 40 degrees as a reference angle. Oh, where did you get 140 from? 140 here. Now, since this is negative 140, oops, this would be negative 40. So reference angle is 40 degrees. Okay, for each angle in standard position below, determine and measure the angle that are coterminal with the angle in the given domain. Write an expression for the measure of all angles that are coterminal with the angle in standard position. So here we have an angle of 75 degrees. So we want to find a coterminal between negative 500 and 500. This is almost identical to the first question we did here today. Okay. So between 0 and 500, let's do that first. So between 0 degrees and 500 degrees, the coterminal are, so we have 75 degrees we start off with, right? And remember, we're using theta plus 360K. So the next would be 75 degrees plus 360 times 1 would be 435 degrees. Now, if you were to go one step further and do a second coterminal, it would be greater than 500, because our limit is 500 here. Now, between 0 and negative 500, the coterminal angles, okay. See, as here we go into negative. Remember, it's theta minus 360K. So we have 75 minus 360 degrees. And what would that give us? 285. Now, can we go any further than that to say we have 75 minus 360 times 2? Now, if we go any further, let's see, just experiment here. What do we end up with? We have 75 minus 360 times 2, 645. It's greater than 500, negative 500. So that's the final answer. Now they ask you to write an expression for the measurable angles, and that will be 75 degrees plus 360 degrees times K, where K is an element of integer. Okay. Next is negative 105, so let's go between 0 and 600. So the terminal arm, coterminal arm, angles are. So we're looking at, in this case, we look at negative 105. So we have a negative 105 degrees, or first one. Okay. So we are using theta in this case, right? Plus we're going plus, right? Plus 360 degrees K. So this is the first theta is 105 negative plus 360 degrees. That's 255 degrees. Now, if you go any further, let's see what will happen if I go to the next step. The negative 105 plus 360 times 2, 650, much greater than 600. So we leave it at that. Now, between 0 and negative 600, the coterminal angles Now, how many will we have here? So in this case, we're using a theta minus 360k. So we have negative 105 minus 360. Now, negative 105 minus 360 gives me negative 645. Oh, no, 465. Huh. Now we can't go any further because they were restricted to 600, negative 600. And what would be the expression in standard position? Well, it's negative 105 plus 360k. Okay, we have, let's put a line across it, so looks kind of a cluttered here. Right along the middle here tells me there are 2 questions. Okay, I'll go to the last 2 questions. Now, first step between 0 and 700, so we're doing the first. So the coterminal angles are, so we're starting off with 215, right? So 215 degrees. That's 1. So we have our standard one. And the next one will be theta plus 200. Theta plus 360 degrees. Who's k? So we have the next one will be 215 degrees plus 360 degrees times 1. And that give us, trusty calculator, 215 plus 360, 575. So it's below 700. Now, if I were to add another 360 to this, right, let's see what would that be. Would that be 360, 595? No, that's much greater. So we stop there. Next, we looked at angles between 0 and negative 700. Well, there should be 700 here. Okay. So we have theta minus 360. So we start off with 215 minus 700 degrees. Right, no, I put 700 here. It should be 360 degrees. And that gave me 215 minus 360 gives me negative 145. That's the first one. So there's a coterminal angle. And will we have any more? 215 minus 360 degrees times 2. So 215 minus 360 times 2 gives me 505. Okay, so negative 505. If you were to minus 360, it's greater than 700, so let's stop there. So the general equation here would be expression, I should say, not equation, plus 360 degrees k, where k is an element of integer. K is a set of set. Final question in this section. So between 0 and 800 degrees. So the coterminal angles are, okay, let's see how many we have. Looks like we have one angle. Angle. So that's what we have. So first of all, theta plus 360k. So it'll be negative 290 degrees. 290 degrees plus 360. What gives me what? 70 degrees. Let's try the next one. 290 degrees plus 360 times 2. That would give me negative 290 plus 360 times 2 gives me 430 degrees. Now, if we add another 36 to that, what do we get? 360, 790. So negative 290 plus 360 times 3 is 790 degrees. Now, that's still below 800, but it's pretty close. We realize we cannot go much further than 790 degrees. Now we have to find between, I should highlight these here, so differentiate. So here's my question. So between 0 and 800, 0 and negative. Now, between 0 degrees and negative 800 degrees. So this will be theta minus 360 degrees. So we have negative 290 minus 360 degrees gives us, what did that give us? 650, let's see, negative 650 degrees. Let's see if that's correct. 290. So that's what we stopped. So now we can write our expression as negative 290 degrees plus 360 degrees k. k is an element of integer. So this concludes the section on coterminal angles, reference angles, angles in standard position. The next section we'll be looking at the 6 trig ratios for an angle. So that's the conclusion to the section on sketching coterminal angle, reference angle, and standard angle.